I will talk about tuples and sets. Today I work in Jupyter Notebook. It's always good to have a change. So I open up my Jupyter, I go to New, click Python 3. So I just save it. And of course, as always, all the code is available on GitHub. The link is down below. Okay, I start with tuples. So I simply create a tuple as follows, and I just use open, closed, normal brackets. Yeah, so not rectangular ones. I could, just for the fun of it, do a little type function here on my first tuple and see what happens, and run this again, and I see now here class tuple. Of course, it's an empty tuple and nothing is put into it. So now I want to create a few items here. So I create what I call item 1, which might be my first name, and then I have an item, 2, which might be my last name, and then I have an item 3, which is maybe position. So that's it. So we have now 3 items. They're all strings. And how can I add these items to my tuple? So if you remember, in the list case, you have the append method. In the case of tuples, what you can simply do is you can use an operator. You just use the plus operator to add items. The only thing you have to be careful with is using the brackets and using a comma. So I could call this new tuple the updated tuple, which consists of my first tuple, and I simply now add the other items into it. Note the first tuple is an empty tuple, but it's already declared as a tuple. And if I now want to add these items, which are strings, into it, they have to be declared as tuples. So how do I do this? I have to use the brackets around, and most importantly, I have to put a comma after each and every item. And then we might like to simply have here another print function, just to have a look at our updated tuple. And you see now we have a tuple, first name, last name, and position. So I can index the tuple. The indexing works just like in lists. Could here do a print function. I refer to my updated tuple, and I could, in rectangular brackets, put in 0, which would go to the first item, and I could do maybe the last item. Let me just run this, and indeed you get first name and position. Indexing works just like in a list. What also works here is slicing. Yeah, we have done slicing as well. So for instance, I could slice as follows. I leave the first one blank because it's a default. I use the colon, and then I go to 2. And again, remember, the second index is exclusive. First one inclusive, second one exclusive. Now that means I go to position 0 and position 1. So if I run this, I should get first name and last names, the first 2 items in the tuple. However, what you cannot do with tuples is you can't switch the order. Yeah, we saw in lists, it's very simple to change the order of a list. Yeah, you have different methods for that. So you can do a reverse method, and we covered this. In tuples, you cannot do this. They are not what you call mutable. They are not mutable. Why do you then need a tuple? And the reason is if you want to preserve order. Yes, if you want to stick to the same order no matter what, a tuple is a useful tool. An example would be, for instance, if you want to include a box in an online form to put in your first, last name and your address. In this case, preserving the order, the structure of what you input might be a good idea, because lists can easily change the order. Maybe sometimes without you noticing. Yeah, we already covered these issues before. The other thing which is very useful in tuples is you can unpack a tuple. So how do you do this? Yeah, so for instance, what I can do is I can write here something like first name and put a comma here and do an asterisk and just say it's other, whatever it is equal to updated tuple. Yeah, so you can take your updated tuple and reassign it to other item. And again, we can do a print function for the other, which then combines remaining items. And you see now this actually goes into a list. Yeah, so if we do a print type function, it's interesting to note that. So I can move now from a tuple into a list, yeah, where I can identify certain elements of my tuple, put them into this new variable, and all the others can be put into a list. So that is kind of useful to note. So that's all about tuples. Now, what about sets? And I want to illustrate this again by starting with an empty set. So I just call this my first set, and I write this down as set open close brackets. So now you note that for a list we have rectangular brackets. For a tuple we have the normal brackets, the curvy one if you want. For a set I have to specify the keyword set and then open close bracket. Good, so how can we add stuff to it? And again, the method for that is different. You have an add method. So I refer to the first set, which is an empty set, and I use the add method. And then I can add some colors into the set, for instance, the color red. And I could add another red into it. Yeah, so why not? You know, why don't we just do that and do here a print function of first set and see what happens. I run this. And you see now, again, it is shown differently. You have here the wavy brackets, yeah, so different brackets, and you see red, green, blue. And it's important to note the second red I put in is not added to the set. And that's the major difference. Yes, in the case of lists, duplication is permitted. In the case of tuples, again, duplication is permitted. In the case of sets, you don't include duplicates. Yeah, so you look at unique items. So red is only there once. I could use the in and not in operator. This is very common in sets. So for instance, you can ask yourself, print as a print function, you can assign it to an object. You can ask, is red in the first set? And you can ask another question, is blue not in the first set? So again, we can run this and you see red is in the first, which is true, and blue is not in the first set, which is false. The thing that does not work with sets is indexing. Yeah, so for instance, if I do something like this, so you get here a type error. Yeah, the set object does not support indexing. So indexing, slicing doesn't work. Sets don't have order. A set contains unique items, and I can ask whether something is in or not in a set, but the order is not meaningful. So whenever you need order, for instance, if you analyze a time series where time provides order, the obvious thing to do is to go into lists or then for computational reasons, move into arrays, and we will talk about this. Excellent, I see you in the next one.